Hello and welcome to my video tutorial on how to make your static website responsive. Now, this website right here is not responsive yet, but it will be in just a moment. Now, I'm going to assume that you already know how to make a static website, which is why you're here to learn how to make it responsive. So I'm going to assume you already know how to set up your tags, how to make a header and all that good stuff, and how to link it with a .css. Now, to actually make your website responsive, you need to go back to your HTML, and in between your nav and unordered list for your header, if that is how you make your header. If not, then I recommend you pause the video and try to recreate what I've done here, just so that it makes it easier for you to learn how to make your website responsive. You're going to add this right here, this line of code. We need that ID to make our website, your website, responsive. Once you've done that, you go back to your CSS and then you start doing some magic. That was very corny. So you take that ID and you write it down, responsive logo, and you start adding the properties. Now, since we're still here and we haven't gone to the really responsive part, we're just gonna put display, and we're gonna display hidden because we don't really want to see anything when the website is static. We're gonna give it a width of 48 px and a height of 48 px and a background size of 37 px. And we're going to do something very, very incredible. We're going to save, and we're going to save, and we're going to see that nothing has happened. Our website is still crappy. It's because we haven't gotten to the responsive part yet. This is just to make sure that when the website is static, we don't see anything here. This is for this, not for this. Now is where we start using something called media queries, which is in CSS3. This is where the responsive part comes in. So we write down media, screen, and max width, and we're going to give it a max width of 158. You can put 160, 168. I usually just do 158 because, well, why not? And within this media query, we're going to add the properties that make our website responsive. Now, we're going to make the whole page, when the website is in that responsive iPad or iPhone mode, have a margin of 0, just to keep everything nice and orderly. After that, we're going to go to our responsive logo ID. And in here, we're going to display the properties of our header in inline block. Next, we're going to give it a background color. We're going to use the RGB property, and we're going to give it a 40, 50, and 60. It's going to give us a nice kind of grayish color, I would assume. We're going to give it a border to make things look prettier of 1px, solid, and gray, just to fit in with our color. And we're going to give it a border radius to make it look more like a button. Again, this is a very bare bones tutorial. Next thing we're going to do is we are going to go to our nav UL. Give me a moment. Fix that. Nav active UL. And here is where the magic really begins. We're going to give it a display of none. We're going to give it a, let me move this just to make it easier for people to see. We're going to give it a position of absolute. That is not absolute at all. Absolute. Sorry about that. We're going to give it a C index of 1000, not 2000. Oh my god, no. We're going to give it a padding of 10 px. We're going to give it a background. Now the background is going to be a color because this is a very quick and easy one. So we're going to give it a nice kind of lightish gray, darkish, something around there color. 191929. It's going to be the same color as our header. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to make it go towards the right 20 px or pixels, whatever you want to call it. I just call it px because I see what I see and I say what I see. To the top 30 pixels. We're going to give it a border of 2 px solid, and we're going to give it a color of F0, F0, F0. We're going to give that border a radius as well. That's not how you spell radius. Of 8px, 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 and 8px. We're going to give it a width of, well, wow. We're going to give it a width of 43%. You can make it something nice and even like 45, but I usually just stick with 43. And we're going to give it an opacity because we want this to look pretty. You know, it's nice and quick, but doesn't have to be ugly. We give it an opacity of 0.92. And if we save, we should start seeing some slight differences. There it is. Your website is now sort of responsive, but we don't see anything. We need this to show up here, and it's not showing up because we're not done yet. Under here, we're going to make a nav hover UL, and we're going to give it a display. The good thing about Sublime Text is that it fixes your mistakes for you. I love that. Next, we're going to go to nav list, and here we're going to add a text align center a width of 100% and a padding of 10 px and 0. We're almost done. Last thing we need to add is nav lia. That's I see what I see and I say it. Okay. I'm going to give it a text align also of center, and we're going to give it a display of inline block. And there we go. We save here. Everything, we don't have to save it. I'm just going to double check. And when we refresh the page, there we go. There it is. We've successfully made a nice, simple, responsive web page. See, when you hover, it's nice and pretty. And it's also nice and pretty here as well. Look at that. A nice, simple, responsive web page. Now, of course, I learned this from other tutorials on YouTube. I recommend you search for those types of videos. They're a lot longer than this one, and they go more into detail on how this works, why this works, and how to make your website a little bit more complex when you're adding things like paragraphs or headers. Right here, we just added a header. Very nice and simple. And I think I've shown you enough to make paragraphs and any other type of content that you're going to put on your web page responsive as well. I hope you enjoyed this video. It was pretty quick and a little bit sloppy, but it's my first one. I hope you learned something from it, and have a good day.